Very warm welcome to all of you in India Tourism Conference 2023. As you all know, India is home of diverse languages, culture, architectural splendor and scenic beauty. This vibrant diversity makes India a treasured tourist hotspot. The travel and tourism sector has always been an area of growth for India, so SHL is organizing India Tourism Conference 2023 with theme $1 trillion tourism economy, technology as enabler.
I don't know how esteemed that is, but a very, very warm welcome to all of you this morning. Mr. Kant, Al, Ajay, friends from the media, members of the industry, ladies and gentlemen, it indeed is a great, great pleasure to welcome you all this morning for this very, very important session. I think we all are living in very exciting times. Mr. Kant, you have had the experience of running the government in various states and at the center as well. And I think nothing could be better than what India today sees as an opportunity for all of us. We have growth that is going to come through to us. I think the economy today is being spoken that we're going to grow at 6.5, 7. People just keep talking about these numbers. But I think the opportunity of India is humongously large. The macros of India have never been better. I think the way the government has managed the economic side of it has been an example. And while the world is kind of struggling, as the global economy is struggling, I think India is going to be a beacon of hope. I'm just going to touch upon a few data points, like for example, a GST number, which kind of amazes you back to back. The kind of revenue growth that is coming through is huge, and I think which is also very, very crucial and important for India is the market that it is. The disposable income of people is going up, and therefore the desire to consume, and therefore the market for all kinds of businesses is going to be large. So when there is growth, when there is a market, I think there are many, many businesses which do help us to make an equitable growth, and tourism happens to be one of them. Mr. Kant, again, dwelling on what you keep saying, tourism is very close to his heart, also his industry, but he always keeps talking about how do we adopt newer technologies, the sunrise industries, and how do we dovetail this entire piece. I'm sure he's going to talk about that. I think India is a country which has multiple opportunities that one is talking about, and each opportunity provides a new solution. And so there will be leaders, there will be challengers for all kinds of technologies that will come through, all kinds of solutions that will come through, and all technologies, all businesses will have addressable markets that one really needs to look at. And obviously, the leaders, the challengers, and the newer technologies will keep emerging at all points in time. The global companies wanting to call India home, and I just want to touch upon this. And I was speaking to the Indian team, the South Pac team of Visa yesterday as well. I think global corporations want to call India their home. They want to partner this growth that I just spoke about. And they want to create that ecosystem which is going to build and support the community within the country, which is really, really taking off. And the role of ASSOCHAM is clearly creating these platforms where we are able to share our knowledge as industry, get the views of the government, create this neutral platform, and then kind of create this whole ecosystem which will help propel the businesses that one is talking about. Obviously, Helen, we are very, very honored and pleasured by your presence, and we value this relationship that ASSOCHAM has developed with Visa, especially in the field of fintech, the payment ecosystem that one is trying to talk about. Obviously, you have a very energized team which keeps engaging with us, and we are very grateful for their leadership with us as well. Mr. Kant, always a pleasure to have you back with us. I'm sure we're going to talk about a lot on this with these few words. Thank you very much. Back to you.
Good morning and a very warm welcome to all of you. Very warm welcome to Al, who I had the pleasure to spend some time with last evening. Very warm welcome to our visionary leader, Mr. Amitabh Kant, who we could not be more proud of. ASSOCHAM is absolutely delighted to host this conference today. I think it's fitting that we should do this at a time when India is just such an exciting place to be. Really, it has to be one of the most exciting countries to be at this time. Deepak spoke about GST collections. You know, these are the indirect tax collections that we have in this country. We used to celebrate last year, I remember, when we used to hit the 100,000 crore mark in GST collections. And we used to say, okay, this month we hit 100,000 crores. Last month we were at 187,000 crores. Massive, massive rise in collections shows the robust growth that is really happening in our economy. In the tourism sector, in this new India and with this government, no dream is too big. When we spoke about a $5 trillion economy in 2025, the time that goal was set, we said, look, this is absolutely impossible and it's just something which, an aspirational goal, and perhaps will get us to the $3 trillion mark or something. But now it's looking eminently feasible and in fact, it looks like we are going to cross it as well. So incredible stuff happening in this country. In terms of tourism arrivals, Al, as you were mentioning last evening, one of the wonderful things that's happened, and of course COVID was a horrible time for all of us, but some great stuff came out of COVID. And one of that was that Indians actually discovered their own country. We used to talk about 10 million tourist arrivals. That was the aspirational goal, that 10 million people from outside India should come into India and so on. Well, that goal of course is going to be crossed, but 700 million Indians got a chance during COVID to see their own country. The number for domestic tourism this year is 700 million people. And that's absolutely incredible, people going around and seeing their beautiful country and spending money in it. Technology, so much technology got built up because of COVID. In the aviation sector that I'm a part of, we suddenly realized that because of the rules, we couldn't have very much interaction between passengers and airport staff and so on. So we built technology which now has enabled pretty much everybody. 95% of people who are traveling by air today are on electronic boarding cards. This just 95% is electronic boarding cards. The check-in system is fully now automated. You leave your bag at a place, you don't even need to go to a counter. You can leave your bag, it will be collected by the airline and a SMS sent to you with a tag of your boarding card. So just so many ways, electronic payments, incredible success that India has had in these UPI payments and this entire India stack that's been worked on. $3 trillion of payments this year, going up to $10 trillion, that's the aim. I think just a phenomenal place to be, and we couldn't be more proud to have this conference today. We couldn't be more proud to have such wonderful guests here on this platform. Al Kelly, absolutely a visionary global leader on digital everything. And of course, Mr. Amitabh Kant, visionary Indian global leader, who's one of our greatest advocates for this country and its progress. So very warm welcome to all of you. Welcome once again, and thank you so much for allowing us the privilege to host this conference.
Indian tourism industry. The merging of technology and tourism has the potential to unlock exceptional opportunities, propel growth, and redefine the way we experience the beauty and diversity of our incredible nation. Now, I would like to invite Executive Chairman of Design, Sri Alfred F. Kelly Jr.
Good morning to everybody. Honorable Sherpa, Tom, nice to be with you. I really appreciate Ajay, your leadership of Ashashan, and Secretary General Deepak Sood. Thank you very much for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to be here with all of you at this important meeting. The travel and tourism industry has always been one of the most important sectors in the world economy. It is what facilitates family visits. It's always been one of those things that turns dreams into realities, and it creates great fun and lifelong memories for people. It's also important in terms of jobs. Before the pandemic, It accounted for 10% of global GDP and generated more than 320 million jobs worldwide. In 2020, the pandemic hit. More than 100 million jobs were put at risk, including many in the micro and small and medium-sized businesses. And I'm glad to say most of the pandemic concerns are now behind us, and countries around the world are reporting a robust rebound in tourism numbers. And we're certainly seeing that bear out in these numbers. Today, the sector is poised to play an outsized role in driving the recovery of the global economy. What a difference a year has made. In Q1 22, the volume of overnight international arrivals into most countries in the region was less than 10% of the 2019 levels, according to estimates compiled by our economic team. Now, as borders have reopened and health restrictions have relaxed, the recovery for Asia Pacific as a region has reached 46% of its 2019 levels and 64% excluding China and Hong Kong as destinations. In this great country of India, we're seeing an outpacing of many of the popular destinations in the region, including Australia, Japan, and Thailand. India recently posted some very promising numbers in terms of visitor arrivals. The tourism minister recently announced that India received 6.2 million visitors in 2020, and the rebound in visitor numbers are on track to fully recover for this country in mid-2024. And I agree with the minister's assessment. Visa's data shows visitor arrivals in India has been steadily increasing from only 25% of 2019 levels in Q1 22 to 80% in Q1 23. And looking ahead, I'm optimistic that India's travel and tourism industry will continue to grow and, importantly, continue to thrive. But the full recovery doesn't mean things will look the same. Tourists have new travel habits. They're spending time in different places. As Ajay said, Indians are rediscovering India as one example. And they're spending money in different places and seeking new opportunities. Based on our analysis of spending on Visa cards, India is attracting foreign tourists who are spending more in key categories linked to experiences. Our data shows that retail and restaurant spending is now outpacing accommodation spending compared to the pre-pandemic levels. Look at the yellow bars on this chart. In almost every major city, retail spending outpaces all other tourist spending categories. If we see tourism as a driver for economic growth, and it is critical, because retail and restaurants are areas of spend that have higher linkages to the rest of the economy. Tourism spending in these categories also drives far stronger employment impact as well, which will help boost contributions to the economy. Let's see what that means. In cities where we see higher foreign tourist spending, employment figures tend to be higher as well. When we consider the gender mix of these employment figures, we see that more women are employed in the tourism sector than men. To illustrate that, look at the dark blue bar in Shimla on the right. In recent years, Shimla has become a very popular destination among foreign tourists because of its local handcrafts industry. In this sector, there's a high proportion of women small business owners and artisans employed to support the influx of tourists. This, ladies and gentlemen, is an example of how tourism spend supports broad-based economic growth benefiting women in the workforce. There are also many opportunities for the tourism industry to emerge even stronger coming out of the pandemic. Visa and EY partnered together on a project to explore mega trends in the industry. And today, we are releasing that report, a copy I have right here, and I'd like this morning to share with you 3 potential game changers for India as identified in this report. The first trend is sustainability. Travelers are demanding sustainable and climate-conscious products, and travel service providers are shifting to greener business practices. Based on the estimates that we see, the sustainable tourism market in India is valued at about $2.5 billion in 2021. This relatively small number reflects the nascent stage and huge potential of the industry, which is expected to grow at a compounded rate of more than 15% in the next decade. A second trend or second area that we see is that India has natural strengths in medical and wellness tourism. When you couple this sustainable travel, you will appeal to the high-end luxury tourists seeking unique experiences. Today, 21% of international trips into China are for medical and wellness reasons. So that is a strong foundation from which to build. A third trend identified in the report is there a huge opportunity to upskill women in the workforce. Tourism accounts for 13% of jobs and is one of the largest employers of women. We need to ensure that women entrepreneurs and small business owners keep pace with the latest digital skills so they can be better positioned to take advantage of the opportunities that come with the growth in this industry. Lastly, I'd like to note these three items, as I look at them, very nicely align with India's G20 themes of One Earth, One Family, One Future. And in just a moment, you'll hear more from our guest of honor, Mr. Amitabh Kant, India's G20 Sherpa. Mr. Kant has done so much for India and the tourism industry, and we are certainly grateful that he's taken time to be with us this morning. In closing, I'm proud to say that Visa has been in India for more than 4 decades, and we remain incredibly committed to the growth of this great country.
And now I would like to request our today's guest of honor, Sri Amitabh Kant, G20 Sherpa, to address us all. Please, sir.
Mr. Ajay Singh, Deepak Sood, Mr. Alfred Kelly, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm truly delighted to be here at the release of this wonderful report which has been unveiled on mega trends in travel and tourism industry. Visa has been a long time partner of India for a very long period and has been a very big driver of growth in the travel and tourism sector. We are passing through very turbulent times. If you look around the world in the post-COVID era, we've seen almost about 200 million people going below the poverty line. Almost about 100 million people have lost their jobs. Almost 1/3 of the world is in recession, according to IMF. 75 countries are facing a global debt crisis. We have the crisis of climate action and climate finance. And if we are not able to reach 1.5 degrees centigrade by 2050, the Earth may survive, but we as human beings will go extinct. And then there is a crisis of sustainable development goals. We are midway through the 2030 goals, but instead of progressing, the world has regressed. And on top of all that, you have the tightening of interest rates in the United States of America, leading to the Silicon Valley Bank and many other crises, and actually impacting countries in the emerging world and in the global south. And as a consequence of which, a lot of resources from the emerging markets are going back to the developing world. And therefore, if you look around the world, these are challenging times. But to my mind, every challenge is an opportunity. Every challenge is an opportunity to do radical things, restructure the world, and take it forward vigorously. There's also the time when India is hosting the G20 presidency. The motto of our G20 presidency is Vasudev Kutumbakam, which in English really translates into one earth, one family, one future. And irrespective of different political perspectives and different geographical boundaries, we all come from one cosmic web. And therefore, poverty in one part of the world has an implication in another part of the world. COVID in one part of the world has severe implication on other parts of the world. And therefore, it's very important that when leaders of the world meet on September 9th and 10th in New Delhi, India sends out a message which is both for peace and for progress, and with humanity at the center stage of that. But in the midst of all this, we clearly realize that tourism will be a very key driver of growth. India is the 5th largest economy in the world. We are going to go and expand to be the 3rd largest economy in the world. Over a period of time, we've digitized our economy enormously. Digital transformation has been one of the key drivers of India's economic growth. Every Indian has a digital identity. From 2015 to 2017, we opened about 500 million bank accounts. 500 million bank accounts means that 55% of the bank accounts opened in the world were opened in India. Every second bank account was opened in India. We then seeded these bank accounts with a digital identity and with a mobile number. And for many of us, actually mobile became the virtual bank. We transact all our business through the mobile. And therefore, India's digital payments is about 11x of what Europe and America does. We do about 4x of what China does. We do 46% of the real-time digital payments in the world. The next is China with about 18%. And therefore, it's important to understand that while India has done this, if you look around the world, there are 4 billion people without a digital identity. There are 2.5 billion people without a bank account in the world. There are 133 countries which do not have a digital fast payment. And therefore, this gives us an opportunity to take many of the learning lessons from India, because during the COVID period, because we'd opened 500 million bank accounts, we were able to put money directly into the bank accounts, and in over 600 schemes of India, Government of India, we put money directly into the beneficiaries' account without any leakages. And therefore, our view is that as the world moves forward, digital transformation will be a very critical driver of growth. And along with that, we've been long-term believers that tourism is not only a driver of growth, but it's a driver of job creation. As India grows to be the 3rd largest economy in the world, it's important to understand that when India becomes 100 in 2047, it will still be the youngest country in the world, with the average age of the population just around 30. Even in 2047, our average age of population is around 29, it will broadly remain around 30, 31 even then. So we'll be the youngest population in the world. We'll be a provider of almost 25% of the workforce in the world. If you look at the hospitality industry itself, it's grown and evolved on the back of many of the hospitality institutes. So if you went 5 years back to many of the top Ritz-Carlton and Four Seasons hotels in the world, many of the general managers would have been trained in Lausanne, in Switzerland. Now if you go, most of the general managers would have come from India, because the nature of travel and tourism has changed. In the 50s and 60s, it was the Britishers and the Americans who were traveling. In the 70s, when Japan became rich, you would have seen vast hordes of Japanese traveling with a Japanese guide carrying a Japanese flag in front and telling them to follow them in the Japanese language. And actually, in the 80s, it became, in the early 90s, it was the Koreans, and 2000s, it was the Chinese. And today, a vast number of Chinese are traveling all over the world. And therefore, The world has been forced to learn, in the hospitality industry, to learn Japanese, Korean, Chinese language. And in the 2030s, 2020s and 2030s, it's the Indian travelings, vast hordes of Indians travelling as outboard Indians, travelling all over the world with Indian, flags. And if you go to France, if you go to Switzerland, the big driver of growth is the Indian tourists. If you go to Malaysia, Thailand, Singapore, all these places, it's the Indian tourists who's giving you high value. And this is the Indian middle class growing and expanding in a large way because of the growth of India. And therefore, in the years, many years to come, it will be the nature of Indian travel and tourism which will redefine the world, both domestically and internationally. Much like they have traveled in the post-COVID era to discover and rediscover India and every corner of India, it's important for India to build unique experiences around India so that Indians are rediscovering India. But as that happens, the quality of 2-star, 3-star, 4-star, and many of the Airbnb products will all improve and enhance. The quality of experiences on ground will improve. And therefore, Indian tourism will get a massive boost. But tourism is always a two-way flow. And therefore, Indians will always travel abroad. And as they travel abroad, you will see Gujaratis traveling with their cooks and their own chefs and their own cuisines, and you will see Bengalis traveling, and many people, many parts of India traveling to different parts of the world. And you will see general managers all becoming general managers from India, managing the Ritz-Carlton. I was in several hotels recently in connection with G20. Everywhere there was an Indian general manager. From Bali to New York to Switzerland, the Indians are becoming the key drivers of hospitality in many, many ways. So, important thing to understand is that the travel and tourism is not merely a driver of growth. It is a driver of employment. It is a driver of job creation. And when India grows at high rates, it's not important that India grows at high rates, but India grows with social equity. And social equity means that the growth must be a driver of great job creation. And there cannot be a better sector to create jobs. Out of all the sectors here, there can't be a better sector to create jobs in travel and tourism. It creates all quality of jobs because it has a massive multiplier impact. And its multiplier impact is direct as well as indirect. So the direct jobs are in terms of creating jobs within the hospitality industry. But its indirect job impact is huge in terms of handloom, handicraft, culture. So the G20 that we are doing, and we are seeing a vast number of upscale tourists coming into India through G20. We are seeing each state promoting its own, one district, one product, its handloom, its handicrafts, its own culture, and that is leading to every state becoming a brand by itself. And the G20's impact is that many states are building up their own brands to penetrate global markets. It's also important to understand that actually India is bigger than 24 countries of Europe, plus another 30,000 kilometers. And it's very difficult to sell India as one product. They're unique products, varying from the Himalayas to the backwaters of Kerala, to the wildlife, all unique experiences. And therefore, every state has to create its own unique experience. And the world of travel and tourism lives on a very simple principle, and that is this principle of differentiation. How do you differentiate your product from the rest of the world? And therefore, when we started off Kerala, and that time Kerala had not been heard about, when we started off Kerala, we said we'll differentiate Kerala from the rest of the world. And we said we'll take Kerala back to its roots. So we took Kerala back to its traditional martial art called Kalripet, we took it back to its Ayurveda, back to its houseboat, back to its backwaters, back to its traditional architecture, back to its traditional cuisine, and we created a unique product known as God's own country. Every state will have to do that, create its unique brand and put it into the global market. And that is when Indian tourism will explode in a very big way. So my view is that India is unique. It should be positioned because of its very unique heritage and cultures, a unique high value, really high value upmarket destination for the travelers of the world. And this would really require us to position it as a very experiential destination, but also as a very sustainable green destination. I've always been a believer that you get high value and you're able to attract more capital if you go green and become more and more sustainable. And India gives you that potential to be it's a part of our heritage, it's a part of our civilization, it's a part of our growing up process that we've all been sustainable in our living. And therefore, it's very important that we blend that and convert that, and that's one of the mega trends which this report talks about. And therefore, my view is that become more and more experiential. The tourism itself will get structured with, earlier there used to be long duration visits once in a year. Post-COVID era, you will see people traveling many times to shorter visits. People will look for different experiences. People will travel to different destinations to give back to that destination more than what they take from that destination in terms of art and culture and experiences. And therefore, this is a unique period for India to really both drive growth and both drive jobs. So I'm truly delighted that Visa has done this very unique study. Alfred Kelly is here personally. The Visa team has been a long-term contributor to India, and we really want them to work in very close partnership with India Travel and Tourism, with ASSOCHAM and many other bodies, and that India continues to grow and flourish, and Visa remains a great partner of India in this great endeavor to take India as the third largest economy of India, with travel and tourism being a very key driver and a very big creator of jobs in India. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much for your words, and rightly said that tourism is not only the driver to growth, but also the driver to job opportunities. And together, we have the power to shape the future of Indian tourism and empower generations to come.
Honorable Chair of G20, Mr. Amitabh Khan, Mr. Singh, Mr. Sood, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, gives me great pleasure to just propose a short vote of thanks on behalf of Mr. Al Kelly and the Visa team to ASSOCHAM for putting together this event. Mr. Khan, we're truly honored to have you here, and the passion with which you speak about India, about tourism, about things that will future-proof this country is truly inspiring. And we know and acknowledge the fact that you have been the architect of Incredible India, God's Own Country, and a number of other campaigns, including Atithi Devo Bhava, which is all about making sure that India is also welcoming to its tourists in that aspect as well. At Visa, we are also extremely grateful, Mr. Khan. You have other aspects of this report, other than what the gentlemen have already spoken about, is the importance of evidence-based, data-based insights in policy making. And of course, the very important aspect of sustainability and in tourism, because that is critically important for a country like us. We also believe that the multimodal journeys, unified interface for commuters, access to all forms of transit and transit-related information is another critical component for this ecosystem to flourish. We at Visa traditionally have always been very, very committed to partnerships, and the tourism sector's growth is also very much dependent on partnerships, and therefore we will continue to have our commitment that we will continue to work with all stakeholders to enhance the tourism sector in this country, and specifically this year as we lead the G20 as part of the G20 platform. So once again, I'd like to thank Mr. Singh and Mr. Sood and the entire team at ASSOCHAM for your guidance, for your support, for putting together the tourism conference. There couldn't have been a more opportune time for us to be standing up here and discussing this. We also would like to express our gratitude to my former colleague, Pragyal Singh, partner at EY, and his team for their contribution and for their collaboration with us in pulling together this report, which really charts the course for tourism megatrends and unpacks that. On a slightly more somber note, we have missed the presence of Sri Krishan Reddy ji, the Honorable Minister for Tourism, who some of you may be aware has taken unwell. We were hoping to have him, as well as Dr. Karat, the Honorable Minister of State for Finance, But again, we will work with ASSOCHAM and our partners to make sure that both ministers and their departments and teams are updated on the progress of both this conference as well as what is contained in our report. So again, in conclusion, we'd like to thank all of you at ASSOCHAM for making this event possible. We believe you have an enlightening program ahead of you today, and rest assured, again, Mr. Khan Visa is deeply committed to working together with all stakeholders to ensure a brighter future for travel and tourism as part of Incredible India. Thank you and have a good day.
We have moved towards the end of this inaugural session, but in a while we are starting panel discussion on India's tourism towards seamless, contactless and frictionless with our moderator, Shri Pragya Singh from EY India. And thank you so much all the dignitaries present on the stage for joining us today for this event, and thanks for taking out your valuable time.
Tourism sector has just absolutely fantastic potential. As we've seen, not only are tourist arrivals into India increasing in a very, very big way, what is really happening is that during COVID, Indians have learned to discover their own country. They've suddenly discovered India, and a large number of domestic tourists. That number was up to 700 million in last year, which is absolutely phenomenal. And tourism will be one of the largest employers of the Indian workforce. As you all know, we are extremely concerned about the fact that India being the most populous and the youngest country in the world today, we need to find good quality jobs for our young people. And tourism as a sector has the potential to provide those jobs for young Indians. So we are absolutely delighted that so many steps are being taken, and that the year 2023 is being promoted as an India visit year by the Government of India. Just so many initiatives are being taken by various states to create fantastic experiences in their own states. We believe that India will be one of the most attractive tourist destinations. An era of very, very low airfares, and while that has helped boost air travel in this country, it has sometimes led to difficulties for airlines, as is evident for all to see. And I think more rational airfares are required in the country, and hopefully the fares will be more rational in times. Phenomena. Of course, when there is a mismatch of supply and demand, airfares will go up, but this settles quite nicely. As you would have seen, the last time an airline went down, there was a temporary period of mismatch, and then capacity came into the system, and fares were back to April. As you all know, we had 450,000 people who travelled by air. That was a record number. At no time in the past has India seen such record numbers of people travelling by air, and you will see the numbers bounce back really, really quickly. During COVID, several of our aircraft had gone down, and with this increase in demand, we want to revive all those aircraft, and there are so many small stations that have been left unconnected or less connected as a consequence of the problems that occurred during COVID. We hope to bring back all those flights and increase frequency to several destinations around the country. Last year was around 4,000 rupees. Now that is $50, which is not even 1/4 of the average airfare in the US. At the same time, costs in India tend to be quite high, as you know. The cost of fuel is pretty high, and the cost of several ancillary services is high. So I think the country needs a strong aviation sector, and hopefully as fares become more rational, as costs reduce, and the government of course has worked very hard on trying to reduce taxes on aviation fuel. With both those events happening and demand picking up, we hope that India can build a strong aviation sector, both for domestic air travel as well as for international travel, and hopefully we will realize our long-held dream of creating international hubs. And these are aircraft that SpiceJet had, which are on the ground because of problems that we had. And those aircraft are now being revived with assistance that the government has provided through the ECLGS scheme. So hopefully we can bring them back quickly and connect several of the destinations, especially small towns and cities that have been left unconnected because of these aircraft.
तो खराब हो गए थे, ज़मीन पे हैं, और इनकी वजह से कई शहर जो स्पेशली जो छोटे शहर हैं उन पर हमारी कनेक्टिविटी कम हो गई। तो हमारी कोशिश यही है कि जल्द से जल्द इन जहाज़ों को वापस हवा में आ सकें और ये जो कनेक्टिविटी है, स्पेशली जो छोटे शहरों की कनेक्टिविटी, इसको रिस्टोर कर सकें। इसमें भारत सरकार की जो ECLGS स्कीम है उससे भी हमें मदद मिली है, और जो धनराशि उस स्कीम के द्वारा हमें मिली उसको हम इसमें अगले 2 महीने का कार्यक्रम है वैसे हमारा, लेकिन कोशिश करेंगे जितनी जल्दी हवाई जहाज़ आ सकें। और ये वो जहाज़ हैं जो कोविड के समय पे ख़राब हो गए थे, और इसके वजह से कई जो छोटे शहर हैं उनमें कनेक्टिविटी कम हो गई है। तो हमारी कोशिश यही है कि जल्द से जल्द उसका कनेक्टिविटी हमारी कि जल्द से जल्द कैपेसिटी बढ़ाई जाए, और जल्द से जल्द जितनी भी जो इस समय इनकन्वीनियंस पैसेंजर्स को हो रही है उसको हम पूरा करने की कोशिश करें। हमारी ये भी आशा है कि जो रेजोल्यूशन का प्रोसेस गोवा ने अपनाया है उसमें उनको जल्द से जल्द सफलता मिले और जल्द से जल्द वो हवा में वापस आ सकें।
सर थैंक यू बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर, थैंक यू।
No, thanks so much for having me here. It's a great family and it's a pleasure to be with all of you. The first thing I'll say is that digital payments in India, as Shri Amitabh Kant already mentioned, is actually far ahead as compared to most countries in the world. This is a product which we are now starting to export, first in terms of thought, but also in terms of actually creating infrastructure for other countries. Therefore, I believe that the ecosystem which is there today is actually very robust. As PayU, we'll be powering many of India's largest companies, whether they're airlines. And similarly, right now we're working on a very large project with India Post as well. So I think for us, what we have done is we have taken an enterprise level system and software and are taking it across the entire board, right? So I think that's how we think. And that's the right approach in this digital era. And I'll actually paraphrase one of my favorite poets, Mary Angelo. She actually mentioned, Maya Angelou, she mentioned, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did. They'll never forget how you made them feel. And so, you need to both differentiate, you need to actually make people feel in a particular way and they'll keep coming back to you. Las Vegas has more hotel rooms at one time than Europe. And there's a reason. It went into sin as almost as a differentiator, right? Today, as PayU, we see the growth in transactions in what is called fantasy gaming or games of skill. The tourism industry should be actually working with government to say why can't this happen physically? Insights to actually both differentiate and to create a message, and in the end actually rely on that human touch to make people feel in a particular way. Thanks.
Well, if I can have a follow-up question. So, how do you feel that that the informal economy, which largely operates around the tourism and travel sector, that may make a difference when we talk about the digital payments, or how do you see that trend unfolding?
So I think because of the rise of UPI in India, we already have a very robust payment infrastructure for any sector, right? It does not matter whether you're the largest of companies or the smallest of shopkeepers, you can use UPI very, very well. Great shout out to NPCI, India Stack and UPI for actually getting this done. And for in small towns across the country. And then because I love traveling, I went and joined the Merchant Navy. So I sailed for many years. And I can tell you with absolute confidence that there's no country like India, there's no place like India. We have more natural differentiation than any other place, and we also have more warm people than any other place. I remember in my early 20s, I was driving somewhere and my car got stuck in the lane. And it was a small village, I had to go to a back that time. And there were people who came in